Do you know where that person who's about to cut you open and perform a surgical procedure was trained? And do you really know where that person who's about to represent your interests in a court of law earned their degree? Or do you know where any of the people you trust to assist you with their expertise gained their qualifications? A certificate sitting pretty on the wall in this day and age is no longer a guarantee. The $500 million industry of underground degree mills has and continues to provide doctors, clergymen, and other professionals with fake degrees all around the world. Past high-profile examples include former Yahoo CEO Scott Thompson, who listed a bachelor's degree in computer science that he does not actually hold. And up to 160 of Pakistan's federal and provincial politicians were accused of faking their degrees in order to meet a requirement for holding office. Locally, we saw Dr. Donald Milton Wells deported under a presidential decree in 2010 after overwhelming evidence of forgery and false documents presented by Botswana Health Professions Council in court, which proved that Dr. Wells was not properly qualified to be a doctor. Richard Harriman of Consumer Watchdog has been very vocal on the subject of fake degrees and writes in a local newspaper that he knows of people here in Botswana who have obtained responsible, highly paid jobs with large and respectable organizations as a result of claiming to have one of these fake degrees. Tonight on First Issues, we interview Mr. Harriman concerned as to what our recourse is with regards to this unethical practice as employers and consumers. I'm Namezo Sibina. Welcome to First Issues. Good evening.
Good evening.
How exactly are people obtaining these fake degrees?
It's remarkably simple. Go to the internet, type in the name of or do a Google search for a university name you've heard of, or go directly to it. And but I've not done it myself, but I've gone almost to the stage of getting one. The moment you hand over your credit card details, you have a degree in a subject of your choice. And what some of them even do is they sell groups of degrees. So you can get a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD at the same time. And they'll backdate the earlier degrees. So they'll agree with you that your PhD is awarded in 2012, but will backdate the master's to 2010 and the bachelor's to 2008. The whole process can take 15 or 20 minutes, and then you have supposedly a degree or a group of degrees. It's that simple. All you need is a credit card and an internet connection.
Some may wonder as to how harmful it really is to fudge a little on your CV, especially if you have the skills.
I think everyone who's ever recruited or interviewed or seen someone's CV, everyone understands that people often exaggerate a little bit. They add a little bit of colour to their achievements. They don't lie, but it's probably safe to say we've all done it a little bit on our CV. We exaggerate a little bit of how good we are, and we hide the problems we've had. But I think the problem is it's fraud. It is a criminal offence to obtain a financial advantage on the basis of a lie. If you claim you've got a degree or a higher degree of any sort of qualification, and you then get a promotion or a job because of that, you've committed a crime.
We asked Mr. Harriman how we can tell whether a degree is fake or not.
It's actually rather simple. There's actually a page on Wikipedia, wikipedia.com or .org, which lists non-accredited universities. And there's a list of, I don't know how many, a couple of hundred of them, because it's very easy to set one up. Go to Wikipedia or just do a Google search for the name of the university you've seen, maybe on a CV or someone's mentioned to you, and the word fake. And you'll find the first few hits will be of this fake university saying how wonderful they are, but then later on you'll find a whole lot of people who have posted other comments saying, actually this degree isn't real. And you'll find a lot from us. You'll find a lot from other organisations around the world who have dedicated themselves to exposing these particularly fake universities.
What legal recourse do we have against someone who has defrauded us in this manner?
Fire them and call the cops. In that order. They've committed a fraud. They lied on their CV. Everyone knows that, yes, everyone knows that you get a qualification by studying, by doing exams, by writing coursework, by being assessed, by having to redo things, and by working hard. Everyone knows that's how you do it. When someone lies about that, they've lied to you as their employer and to you as their boss or their colleague. And you are perfectly entitled in that situation to fire them on the spot and then call the cops if you want to get back at them, because they have committed a crime. They've stolen your money, their salary, or the amount they got when they were promoted. They've stolen that money from you. And I really do urge organisations to take action against them, because it's not endemic in Botswana, but I can think of 4 or 5 people I know who I can name who have fake degrees. 2 of those I know have been fired because when it was exposed. But there's plenty of people out there, and that's just people I've come across or happen to have seen their CV, or they've mentioned that they have a degree from one of these universities. So if I've just bumped into 4 or 5 of these, there's a lot of them out there.
As a consumer, what recourse do you have if you find that the professional that's been assisting you is not really a professional?
I think that's an important question, because we tend to rely on people who say they are medically qualified, or they're legally qualified, or they really are an accountant, or they are one of the professions. We assume that their qualifications are real. If you go into most lawyers' offices and most doctors' offices, they'll have their qualifications on the wall. So it's worth looking at them. I mean, no doctor, no real doctor, lawyer or accountant or any of the professions will have a problem with you saying, where did you study? Just out of interest. You don't have to be rude about it, but it's perfectly reasonable to say, where did you study? And anyone with a real qualification will be proud to tell you that they studied at this particular institution and this is how they did. As a consumer, the recourse you have is to complain, if possible, to the professional bodies. So lawyers, doctors, nurses, real estate professionals, they all have to be registered with their registered body. Engineers as well, I think, at the moment, recently. Check with their registered body, because they can be put out of business by their professional body if necessary. Or you can even take civil action against them. Say, you stole my money. You said you were an accountant, but it turns out you're not. Give me my money back. Go to the small claims court, or if you have the resources, go to the conventional court system. But it costs money, but the key thing is, if they belong to a professional body, complain to that body first and ask for their advice.
I'm sure a lot of people aren't as internet savvy as they should be. How could they discern between an online institution that is legitimate and one that is not so?
Call us. We'll tell you. If you suspect, just give us a call, or email us, or get in contact somehow and say, someone says they have a qualification from this particular place, is it real? And we'd be happy just to say yes or no. It doesn't take long to find out. Most of the fake universities you see people claiming to have degrees from, it's a small number, and we would recognise the name fairly quickly. But give us a call and we'll do that for you.
Are these degree mills always online or not?
Most of them are online, and that's because it's very easy to set up a website. And you'll find that there's one group of them, there's about 20 or 30 of them. They're actually all run by the same organisation that's based in Pakistan. But they have names that suggest that they're in the States or somewhere where English is the first language. But we found a couple that operate by post. There's one in Malaysia that calls itself the Northern Ireland Institute of Business and Technology. Okay. Northern Ireland, but they're in Malaysia, and they're not in Northern Ireland. And they call themselves British as well, and they're not British. And they operate primarily via the post. They have a website as well. So it's not just on the internet, it's the old-fashioned way by post as well. But these days, anyone who's even thinking of doing a higher degree will have internet access and might be tempted by the huge range of these fake universities online. There's plenty of them out there.
So it's not possible to go to a local institution here and find that the work you've submitted has earned you a fake degree?
I doubt that's possible because BOTA, the training authority here, is one of the few regulators we have in Botswana that's actually quite effective. If you go to the BOTA website, you can see a list of all of the accredited institutions here in Botswana and all of the qualifications they award and the courses they run that have been checked out by BOTA to make sure they're real, they're legitimate, they have real lecturers, they pay their tax on time. BOTA is a good place to start. If you see a qualification that's here locally, and in South Africa as well, they have a similar organisation. You can check out the college or the university and look at the specific qualifications that they're offering and the courses they offer. So it's worth checking that first of all. I don't think there's much of a chance of an institution here awarding a fake degree. But that doesn't mean there aren't people who claim to have degrees from local institutions or qualifications from local institutions that aren't real. Anyone with a colour laser printer and a computer can create a fake degree certificate fairly quickly. We looked at this some months ago where someone presented a degree from the University of Botswana, which was real. But looking at the degree certificate, I suspect I could fake one of those fairly quickly. And it would look convincing. It would be on nice quality paper and it would have the correct headings and the right pictures and so on. Just because you see a degree certificate or a qualification from a local institution doesn't mean it's real. It's always worth checking with that institution, did this person get that qualification on this particular occasion?
Any last words to employers especially with regards to protecting themselves against this type of fraud?
First of all, you should treat a CV as a document that should be investigated. You don't have to call the cops, but first of all, always call the references. It'll take you 15, 20 minutes, half an hour to call those 3 or 4 people for the person you're looking to employ. That's 15, 20 minutes, half an hour well spent. I've done it a couple of times in the past where I call a reference and discover that the person I'm about to employ either didn't work there at all or was fired. It's worth making those phone calls. But also, most real universities have a number you can phone. They have a mechanism for you to check that this degree is real, that this person did attend that university, they did get this qualification. You must contact those organisations to check. You can also do a Google search. Google is an incredibly powerful tool. Someone claims to have a degree from Rocheville University or Headway University. Do a quick Google search for Rocheville University, fake, and you'll find out quite quickly. And one of the key things to look for is when you go to a university's website, does it have a building? Does it have a physical address? Even legitimate universities like UNISA in South Africa, which is primarily distance learning, it still has a building that you can visit and see people. Even though you don't study there, you study all through distance learning. There is a building with the admin staff and the billing department and the managing director. Look for a physical address and look for a phone number that relates to that. You'll find that all of the fake university sites I've seen don't have a physical address. What you can also do is then go to Google Maps or Google Earth and go to Street View, which has just been, Street View's just been launched here in Botswana. Look at the address, and you'll find that very often a so-called university, if it does give a physical address, is an office above a shop somewhere. Now that's not how real universities work. As I say, even the distance learning ones, they have a physical address where the administration is done. Only respect a university that has a building from which it's based.
So what kind of consequences are we looking at if this was to become endemic?
I think the worst thing that could happen to us in Botswana is for us to be seen as the sort of place where people have fake degrees and where people fall for these sort of things. We need to stand up for ourselves and protect our economy and protect our reputation by campaigning against this. Now we're lucky, as I say, BOTA. BOTA is pretty good. As regulators go, I've been quite dismissive of regulators. But BOTA and BAFIRA are 2 really aggressive regulators we have in Botswana. And they deserve a big pat on the back because registering with BOTA is very bureaucratic and takes a long, long time to get your establishment and your courses recognised. But that's how real countries work, that they have a regulator of education and training. And we're lucky to have an organisation that is fairly effective. They should be doing more, but they're doing pretty well. So I'm not going to criticise them. But the danger is to our reputation and to the economy if we're seen as a nation of cheats and fakes.
So our legal framework is in place to guard against this type of thing?
It certainly is. And as basically, it's fraud. That's the key thing. If someone has done this, once you've fired them, once you've shown them the door, call the cops, because they stole your money. We don't need new laws to protect against this. We have existing laws. We have BOTA and we have the police, and that's all we need.
In this segment of the show, we present the final installment in our series on personal financial management, estate planning. Having covered the basics of setting financial goals, budgeting your current income, and creating a diverse and thus crisis-resistant financial portfolio, and planning for your retirement, basically every stage of your adult life, we now move on to the next and final stage: how to plan for what happens to the assets you accumulate after you pass on. To help us understand the need or importance of estate planning, we speak to Edna Dambe of Money Matters Financial Consultants. And we begin by asking her, what makes a will a legal and thus enforceable document?
Well, first of all, a will must have an executor. This is somebody who will carry out your wishes after you've passed on. It must have beneficiaries, because you write it out to ensure that those people get your assets. It should be signed. A will is not a legal document unless it has been signed. And it must be witnessed by two people. And those two witnesses should be present together at the time that you're signing the will.
Why make a will in the first place? How important is it really to plan for eventualities that will occur when you're no longer even around?
A will is, without a doubt, your last most important document in life. A will is an expression, a legal expression of wish as to how you want your assets distributed after your death. Now, without a will, you will find that your assets may go to people that you really had not wished to inherit you. So the importance of a will is, on the one hand, to distribute your assets according to your wishes. And secondly, to reduce family conflict. That is where we see the importance of a will in Botswana.
What cannot be enforced by a will?
Your benefits from a pension fund cannot be enforced by a will, because these funds are distributed according to the Pensions and Provident Funds Act, which will start off with your children, spouse, and then go on to your parents, your siblings. But those funds cannot be enforced by a will.
To conclude this topic and our series on personal finance management with Edna Dambe, we asked her for her final words of advice on estate planning.
We need to appreciate the impact of not planning or not writing out a will on the remaining members of your family. Because in a lot of cases, you find you've got a loving family that sticks together because their parents are around. The minute the parents pass on and there is no written will, then all hell breaks loose and the whole family falls apart because everybody wants what they were not given. Do you understand? So my advice would be, let us stop seeing a will as bringing me closer to death. Let us see a will as a document which continues the peace after my departure. Because at the end of the day, it is the only document which will ensure that your assets are distributed according to your wishes.
It is now time for business and finance news that made headlines this week. The repercussions of our actions may not always be immediately obvious, but whether it is padding your CV with fake qualifications or neglecting to provide for your loved ones by drawing up a will, the consequences of those actions will eventually manifest themselves. And hopefully after tonight's program, you have a better idea of how serious those consequences may be. If you didn't quite catch what those scenarios are, you can find and watch this episode and your other favorites again on YouTube or by following us on Twitter for weekly updates. From me, Nameto Sibina, the team behind First Issues, and our valued sponsors, First National Bank, we wish you a good night and pleasant viewing.